Hello and welcome to the fourth episode of Vindication Sports. I'm your host, Jackson Hester. I'm sorry I didn't come to y'all yesterday on Monday, but I had some things I had to do. Anyway, today I want to talk actually about a sport that's not basketball. I know that is probably a shock, but I do have some thoughts on other sports. The only reason that I've been dedicating so much time to basketball is because really there's been not too many developments, when you're talking about any of the other major sports. I mean, baseball's had some interesting stuff, like the universal designated hitter, the three batter rule for pitchers, all this stuff. I'd love to discuss because I love those sports. I'd love to get into hockey, and I think I'm going to do potentially a segment or a couple of segments where I try to get one of my good friends from back home to basically just explain to me soccer. So that ought to be a good time, honestly, if it ever happens. You will know about it first, obviously. But NFL it's a sport. It does have things that happen, and one thing that happened that made me really interested and potentially wanted to talk about was Patriots signing Cameron Newton. Now that is I think not what people were expecting the Patriots to do. I don't know. I think there's a few quarterbacks still on the market that people would have put the Patriots in for before. I mean, they got him for nothing. Bill Belichick is a scary man, and Cam Newton is an MVP. Former. Let's not forget that he's former. He's clearly not an MVP right now, or even in that conversation. He was playing great before his injury, but we'll just have to see how it works. I think it's pretty clear he outcompetes Jarrett Stidham in Week 1. I don't think there's any chance, or he outplays Jarrett Stidham in training camp, and he's going to be the Week 1 starter. I don't want to say for sure because it really is going to come down to what happens in training camp. I don't know why, but there are people who are hyped on Jarrett Stidham of all people. But, this really maybe is a sign that things are actually going to change in the NFL. Maybe the best quarterback is a quarterback that is a good passer or a great passer, but also a mobile threat. I think that that's a very important part of the, current, modern game, basically. You have to be able to run you have to be a quarterback, and I'm going to just lift this from Colin Cowherd really quick. You can't be a running quarterback. You have to be a quarterback that is a passing quarterback that can run, and there's a big difference. I don't know if there's too many running quarterbacks really in the league today. They don't make it that far for reasons of the way that the game develops and the overall higher skill level with the defensive lines. Quarterback running, it's really risky. That's probably the number one reason why you don't see it last too long. RG3 was a running quarterback, and look what happened. It's very unfortunate. He was a really great player, really great to watch, but he got himself run into the ground. Cam Newton has been a little run into the ground. Cam Newton can pass. People sleep on Cam Newton's ability to sling the football, but he's obviously not a traditional gunslinger, but he does have that kind of hybrid capability where he's Superman, unironically calls himself that, and he kind of is true to an extent. He just does things that don't make sense. So if he's fully healthy, that's scary. But so I just think that Bill Belichick is just adapting to the NFL's evolution over time. You really can't just have your quarterback stand in the pocket and throw the football anymore. It just doesn't. It doesn't add up too well anymore. And I know Jimmy Garoppolo does that, and there's a few quarterbacks that just stand in the pocket and throw the whole game, but in the playoffs, the game-winning plays were often made by quarterback sneaks and tricky stuff like that. Save Kyle Shanahan. He's just an overall genius. But, you know, the MVP last year was Lamar Jackson. And he obviously was a running quarterback, or we all thought he was a running quarterback. But now he's the MVP because he is a passing quarterback that can run. Kyler Murray, he's a quarterback that you really are going to have to be watching out for. A lot of these guys, Deshaun Watson, they are great runners, but even better passers. And I think that's the important thing to talk about. That I just wanted to get that out there about the NFL's evolution. But, really more on the Patriots, more specifically, that offense is a little scary, right? Because Cam Newton is a big guy on his own. I mean, he didn't really have too much help in Carolina on the offensive end. No pop out superstar. I mean, there's no duo there that's going on the cover of Madden. But Christian McCaffrey later in his career, he's kind of a young player. But Cam's got some solid pieces. Sonny Michel, good. He's an okay running back. James White, a good running back. A little bit of a safety blanket. He'll catch some passes for you. N'Keal Harry, he was a first-round pick. That's a little disappointing, isn't that, Bill? That's why you don't do that, right? You just can't evaluate wide receiver talent. That's your one weakness. Wide receivers are super important in the modern NFL. But you do have Julian Edelman, one of the great slot receivers, just because of your offensive genius routes and just everything with Bill. So gross. However, there are a lot of offensive line question marks. Tom Brady was not the only person to depart from New England. They also lost Dante. I'm just gonna call him Dante Scarn. It's a long last name. I'm gonna say it wrong. Scarnecilla, I think. There's a CH in there. I don't know how to navigate the double C into the HIA. So we'll just leave it at that. But despite that, how good does the offense even need to be, right? Because you're undoubtedly bringing back a top 5 defense. You have the defensive player of the year, Stephon Gilmore, probably the most cerebral defender we've ever seen. I think he's better than someone like Richard Sherman was even in his prime. He's just completely changing the way that we think about the position and we think about having a leader on defense. And I know that Bill is also, obviously a part of that groundbreaking defense, everything involved there. Everything's got his fingerprints all over it, but again, I think the defense is going to be, really stout. They've got just so much defensive playmaking power. Last year, it felt like most of the touchdowns scored by the Patriots were scored by their defense or special teams. It's some humiliating percentage that I dare not look up. But, Tom Brady was a little flat last year, and that's not really his fault. The whole offense was just really flat. I listed out all those guys that were on the team last year. They're all kind of bad in a way. I say that Sonny Michel and James White are okay players, but they're really bad. They're not great. Julian Edelman is he's a great player. He's a great slot receiver. But the Tom Brady connection, that was a big part of him, I think. I don't know how Julian doesn't try to get himself down to Tampa. I think that would be what I would want to do if I were Julian. Is just go to warm weather and try to win another Super Bowl with Thomas Brady. But, I digress. I just want to talk a little bit more about the offense, I think. I don't think the Patriots ran almost any RPOs last year. I think that it was a lot of tomfoolery. No really tomfoolery. No really, they didn't really experiment. I think maybe that was holding Bill Belichick back. He didn't run a whole lot of options before, but Tom Brady had a cannon. His plan was always to get Jimmy Garoppolo in there. And maybe the cannon strategy still works if you've got a cannon. Kyle Shanahan's showing us that, maybe Jimmy Garoppolo can If Jimmy Garoppolo leads his team back to the Super Bowl this year, I think everybody needs to go ahead and quiet down. But there was a lot of weird things that happened in the 49ers season this year, and I think they're going to be the Super Bowl hangover team this year. They're going to be the Rams. They're not going to make the playoffs. They're going to fall completely flat. And it's just the Jared Goff, Jimmy Garoppolo, I'm just the average quarterback, please help, screaming, But maybe, we actually do see Bill Belichick start running more option plays, more stuff where Cam can get a little creative with it. I don't think you're ever really going to look at Bill Belichick and see him running an offense similar to the Ravens, even though I have kind of made comparisons. There's a lot of holes. There's a lot of problems with trying to emulate that. You don't really have the tight end play anymore. You certainly don't have the running back play. Your defense is there, but you also don't have Lamar Jackson. And I would say that the Ravens have you beat in receivers too. So really what I'm saying is Tom Brady was uber justified to leave, and Cam Newton is going to have a bad year trying to carry this corpse on his back. But I believe in you, Cam. I believe.